Back again. Back again. Next awesome episode. We are incredibly fortunate to be joined by Coach McGrath, head coach, University of Chicago. Great Division III program. Again, in probably I would say the best league in Division III in the UAA. Coach McGrath has been there. I was looking you up, my man. A long time, pretty much the majority of your whole coaching career, right? 28 years, something like that. 7 years in as assistant. I'd love to give you a couple minutes to talk about your journey quick, and then we'll start firing away.
Well, thanks, Mike, and I appreciate you guys offering me the opportunity to join in. And I'm familiar with the work that you guys do, and I know the value of it for people. So, any way we can contribute, we're glad to.
Appreciate it.
So, I grew up wanting to be a college basketball coach. I think about 7th grade was the first time I started thinking about it. I went to DePaul University in Indiana, and I chose that school because I was thinking about becoming a college basketball coach, and I thought they had a route for me to follow that, and had a great experience at DePaul. We made the national championship in 1990, lost a 1-point game to actually a team in our league, the University of Rochester, which is painful every time I go out there see that banner. It's kind of hard. But after I graduated, it was hard to find a job, and was out looking around trying to find some opportunities, and there wasn't much there for me. And I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, and I was attracted to this type of institution, and I thought I was basically at a point where I thought I had to go work somewhere for free to get my foot in the door. And I figured if I'm going to go work somewhere for free, I might as well do it somewhere close to home and just give myself a little bit of a safety net with my family nearby and friends nearby and some of that. The coach at the time at the University of Chicago knew my coach from DePaul, introduced us. I agreed to come here and volunteer. And for 3 years, I was a volunteer basketball coach. I coached and practiced and recruited in games every day. And during the day, I worked as a high school librarian. And actually take that back. I was an assistant high school librarian. I wasn't even the top guy.
Didn't get the head job yet. Yeah.
No. But basically, I was a glorified study hall monitor.
Nice.
And I did that during the days, which allowed me to coach and recruit in the evening and at night. And after 3 years, I had some other opportunities. I was interviewing for full-time jobs. I actually had 3 different Division I interview positions that I interviewed for, or Division I assistant positions that I interviewed for. And those didn't work out, and eventually I got a full-time job at Chicago, the full-time assistant spot. Did that for 4 years, and then I was in the same boat. We had done really well at Chicago. We had, in 1995, 94, 95, we went 3-22, and then in 1997, 98, we were 24-3 and number 2 in the country.
Wow.
And so I was getting some credit for that. People saw how our program had done, and I was interviewing for head coaching positions at other Division III schools in the country. And surprisingly, my boss moved on, and they offered me the job here. And the next thing I know, I've been here for 30 years, and it's kind of shocking to me. I mean, I'm really not that old, and to have spent 30 years at the same place, it doesn't happen very often in this business. And I might have another 20 in me, so we'll see what happens.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I do think, the continuity obviously is really rare in the coaching profession. Being able to stay at one spot for so long is incredibly rare. And to be able to be straight up, to be able to keep your job at one spot in this business is really rare. So it obviously says a lot about your coaching style, your relationship building, all that combined, allowing you to stay in the same spot going on 30 years is really impressive. Really impressive.
It's unusual, and I'm very thankful that I found a home early, and when you find a home, it's awfully great to be there.
Awesome. So right to it. What are your pet peeves? You're looking for players. What are it's the one question I've asked every single coach exactly the same way. You're in a gym looking. What stands out to you positively? What jumps out to you negatively? What are you looking for in a player?
Yeah, obviously you're looking for, there's 2 different things you're looking at, right? You're looking at a very concrete skill set, athleticism, size, position, some of those really significant, obvious things, I guess you would say, like, can this guy shoot or can he not shoot? Can handle the ball as a point guard, and then you're looking at some intangible things. And you can't get too focused on one versus the other. From an obvious thing, there's a certain size and athleticism that you need to have, or else you have to have an incredible skill set to overcome that. Depending on your position, obviously, it could be different. Once you kind of cross that threshold of meeting that, I'm not looking for the most athletic guy I can find. You got to meet this threshold, and then I'm looking for the skill set more than athletic ability. The ability to handle the ball and shoot and footwork and different things like that is something that we really emphasize. One of the reasons that is the type of institution that I'm at. The University of Chicago is a place, obviously, it's one of the best schools in the country, and you tend to attract very, very hard workers. They're not necessarily people blessed with a lot of natural ability who don't develop their skill set, don't often translate into the type of people who have the academic approach that fits our schools.
That's needed to even get a sniff, right? Yeah,
to get admitted. So I could want to be more athletic, but that would narrow my pool, to be honest with you, because I do think there's a correlation between skill set and work ethic and the academic work ethic. So I'm more likely. So we've kind of designed what we look for and what we focus on based on what we're likely to find. And so that's part of it. I also think one of the things that we really emphasize on that side of things is versatility. I love big men who can shoot and dribble and pass. I love perimeter guys who can post. I love guys who can do a little bit of everything. We love to put guys in different positions and do different things with them. It's a really fun way to play offensively. I don't like he's a screener, he's a rebounder, he's a shooter, he's a ball handler. We want guys who are versatile. And so those are probably our biggest emphasis on that end. On the other side, when you're watching a game, now there's most of the intangible stuff you get to know about somebody when you talk to them and you develop a relationship with them. When you're watching them play, you're looking for a understanding of how to play the game. You're looking for a competitiveness, and I look for a little bounce.
Now, what do you mean by bounce?
Yeah, I thought you were
yeah, got to dig.
When I started out as an assistant coach, I would go watch high school games, and you would go to the high school game and you watch the teams line up for the national anthem, and I hated guys who were flat-footed. I wanted guys who were bouncing, like they couldn't wait for the game to start. They're kind of up on their toes and ready to go. And there's a lot of different ways to look at that, but that's one really prime example.
I like it.
Are they eager to be out there and play the game? Can they not wait? Is Friday game day the best day of their life? And they just can't wait to get out there and play. There's that bounce is something that you try to discern a little bit.
I love it. Because we've heard some different answers. Obviously, a lot of intangibles will come up, but not in that exact way. Not in that exact way about trying to read someone pregame and see how eager they are. Like you said, are they super excited? You can probably tell some of the things that are going on in their head if they're bouncing off the wall, ready to tip, right?
Yeah. There's a little enthusiasm there that means a lot. Very much so.
That's awesome.
How would you describe University of Chicago's style of play and how that, obviously you already touched on the fact that you like versatility. But do you look for when you're, as you stated, you could tell a skill set sometimes will equate to someone who's hardworking enough in the classroom too, who's been developing their skill set. Sometimes those go hand in hand. Do you ever find yourself looking for the best available player and then try to mold them into your system? Or are you someone who's looking for the best fit for your system off the get?
I used to laugh. Yeah, sorry to cut you off there.
No, go.
It's a great question. I used to laugh with a friend of mine, Mitch Henderson, who's the coach at Princeton, when he was with Northwestern. I had recruited Mitch out of high school. And
oh, wow. That's awesome.
I was talking to him when he was up at Northwestern one time. And I go, Mitch, do you just get tired of people saying, oh, he could play at Northwestern? He could play there. He could fit that Princeton style. And he goes, drives me nuts. And I'd be like, I don't know, but Coach Kirill and Coach Carmody, they look like they could have figured out how to use Shaq to me.
Probably, right?
Like,
Sure.
yeah, I mean, you're going to skew certain ways based on how you like to play and how you, but, unless we're at Duke or Carolina or some places, Kentucky, places like that, most of us are, trying to find really good players and maybe not completely revamp our system, but you got to tweak things if you can find very, very good players for sure. There's no doubt about that, Offensively, if you ask people how we play, we've played different ways over the years, and some of this is the versatility. We've pounded it inside. We've shot a lot of threes. We've gone off the dribble. We've played faster. We've played slower. The thing that I tell people is we really emphasize sharing the basketball.
Love it. Love it.
Steve Nash is awesome. And he made a lot of people a lot of money in the NBA. But that's just not, the one guard dribbling and kind of four guys standing around that's become so prominent, or one guy ball screening for one guy dribbling and three guys standing around. It's just not how I grew up. There's a flow to the game when it's done really well. And there's kind of a synergy of five guys being on the same page and in sync together that one guy kind of over dominating the ball gets away from. And we want to play that way. We want to share the ball. We want to find the open guy. We want to take what the defense gives us, and we want to incorporate everybody. And we don't do that calling a bunch of sets. And it's harder with the shot clock changes over the years and different things. And I think sometimes it takes us longer to evolve into our system for guys. Like last year, coming out of COVID, we struggled and I think we would have been better off because we missed a whole year of that evolution.
Yeah.
And had we just come down the floor and called plays every time, I think we might have been better. But I think in the long term, it's the way I want to play. Defensively, we're kind of position over pressure. We've pressured some, we've been off some, but our thing is we're going to protect the rim, we're going to protect the lane, and then we're going to protect the 3-point line. Now, sometimes you do that by getting out into people, but as I described the kind of players that we typically get, that's not always the best way to do it. So we're a little more gap focused, and what we do, and I think if you talk to people who've been playing against us for a long time, we're going to take away your best options. We're going to you got 1 and 2, we're going to make you go to 3. And I think we do a pretty good job of that in terms of scouting and preparation. And so we're going to emphasize position, and then we're going to take however it is you want to score. We're going to take that away.
Similar to the balance, right, that you see for players, Coach. Can you kind of describe maybe some of the mentality that you're looking for in certain players, right?
Yeah, this is a University of Chicago specific thing.
Okay.
So at the University of Chicago, and no offense to anybody anywhere else in the world, but a student athlete at the University of Chicago, if there's a spectrum of student athletes in the world, we're more student than athlete versus most teams, right? That's what we are, and that's what we're all about, and that's fine. The guy who's the most focused on basketball and the least focused on the classroom at my school is probably more focused on the classroom than anybody in the Pac-12.
Yes.
It's just what we are, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine, and we embrace that, and we're proud of that, and we think it's the way it should be. But from an intangible standpoint, from a mentality standpoint, we're looking for a few guys who think of themselves as athlete students.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Who are going to make sure they carve time out of their day for basketball. And they're going to do this other stuff, and they're going to do it well. And they're not just trying to get by. They want to nail it, but they don't want to diminish the energy they put into this, both as an individual player and as a team. And that's, to be honest with you, that's easier said than done these days, because you talk to every kid on the phone and they all say, well, I love to be in the gym. I love to be in the gym. I'm in the gym all the time. And I hate to lose and I love to win. And you really don't know till you see that kid out there and you coach them how they're really wired, but you try to figure that out.
And that's all graded on a curve too, right? So even a kid thinking that he's a hard worker or living in the gym, maybe in his little world that's true, but compared to everyone else coming into college that year, maybe he's not grading out the exact same way on the work ethic scale, at least as far as athletically.
And that's the hunger part of it is, you've got our guys. If one of our players in high school got a B plus, they'd be pissed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they would,
Mm-hmm.
they'd be screaming.
Mm-hmm.
And, I want a guy who's screaming when somebody on the other team scores on him.
Gets a bucket on him. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
and
yes.
what are there, you got to be really hungry and have a high level of expectation. And you can't be somebody who's going to accept somebody else outworking you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Love it. And like you said, it already takes such a level of commitment to just get into your school that from that pool of players to then be seeking out the ones that are equally athletically driven and goal oriented in that way too, just as strongly, I'm sure is challenging or tough or, trying to decipher.
I mean, you're really trying to thread a needle.
Mm.
And one of the things, when I told you how hard it is to figure out who those kids are who want to be athlete students, one of the best ways to figure that out is coaches who know those kids and you trust. And the hard part is the vast majority of people that you talk to tell you what you want to hear, and they're trying to help the kid, and understandably so. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's one of the drawbacks. That's one of the really hard things about recruiting nationally, like we do. You just don't have that same kind of network. If I were just recruiting kids in Chicago, I mean, half the high school coaches around here I played against or grew up with, or
you trust them, know them, yeah,
and they're gonna shoot you straight. You have to kind of figure out how it's harder to pull through it. It's harder to figure that out.
I could see that. Position wise, specifically, are there certain skill sets? Obviously, the point guard needs to be able to handle it. Whoever your forwards are need to be able to rebound a little bit. Other than some of the obvious ones, are there certain skill sets or athletic qualities you're looking for in each position, as far as maybe a shooting 2 or a athletic 3-4, or are there certain things you're keying on? Or are you kind of open to any type of athletic ability or skill set for each position?
So in my dream world, we would play 5-6-5 guys. Like that's the way I see a team looking like sometimes. But there's 2 unique skill sets that you need. You need one guy on the floor who can handle it against pressure and kind of direct a team. And in doing that, sometimes you'll sacrifice some size, sometimes you'll sacrifice some athleticism, sometimes you'll sacrifice some shooting ability. One of your 5 guys out there needs to be able to kind of direct things a little bit. And that ends up being more your point guard. 2, 3, and 4, they can be exactly the same as far as I'm concerned. You give me 3 2, 3s, and 4s that can shoot post and put it on the floor, that's pretty good.
You're good. Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah.
And we've had that at times, which is nice. We get guys like that. You need one guy out there who can probably defend in the post and rebound a little bit differently. You might sacrifice a little skill for kind of a rebounder mentality and kind of a physicalness on the block, because you just need somebody who's going to be able to do that. What we like to do, so what I always think is if you play most teams are either going to have a second post or a second guard. Some have both. If I have 3-6-5 guys, you got to figure out how to match up to them, and I'm going to take what you give us. You put the little guy on one of the 6, that's the guy we're going to post. You put the slower guy on somebody else, that's the guy we're going to step out on the floor and create some space for. That's really how we think about it. Is you can't match up to those 3 positions.
I think
awesome. Go on, Jay.
No, I think what's awesome about that is it sounds like your program is one of those that are take advantage of the size of the wings that you could possibly have, right? And don't let them just linger, on the perimeter. But go ahead and get in the post. Use your size, use your physicality, and if that's why go get 2 points? An easy 2-point little hook or layup instead of shooting a 3-way out there on a guy that's half your size or maybe a little bit smaller.
We have 2 6'5" guards this year who were freshmen. Actually, one was a sophomore, but he didn't play last year. They were in their first year of college basketball. We started teaching them that stuff, and they're going to be really good at it.
Yeah.
They're strong. They're willing to be physical. They have long arms. Like, but at first they're like, Coach, why am I doing this? I'm a shooter. Why am I doing this? I'm a guard. And, you know, and you're just kind of showing it to them, just like every post guy wants to handle the ball, right? Like, you're trying to show them what the amount of success you can have with that and the high percentage shots you can get with that. Because to be honest with you, it's easier. I made the joke about Shaq before. I mean, those guys are pretty hard to find, right? We can find really skilled, talented 6'5" guards and take advantage of some other people that way.
I think that's a great point for players, for parents watching this to hear you say, because obviously we deal with it at our level, the high school level, the AAU level, training guys. We'll get the 6'5", 6'6" guys coming into our gym saying, please make me a 2. I don't want to be a post. I don't want, when we're trying to tell them, look, stay versatile. I know you're a big man at your high school. I know you want to play the 2 when it's AAU season. I know you want to come work on your guard skills and be trained like a point guard, but staying versatile, having a post game, being able to take advantage of whatever advantage you might have in a particular possession, I think is so valuable at the next level.
I think that's absolutely true. And you know, I remember one time I had a guy in my office. He's like, Coach, I don't know why I'm playing the 4. And I said, you are? I was like, who told you were playing the 4?
Yeah.
And like, to me, numbers often, with the exception of point guard, the numbers have more to do with what you do defensively.
Okay.
Who are you match? So those interchangeable 2, 3s, and 4s, one of them is usually guarding more of a bigger, stronger guy. One of them might be a little bit better chasing guys off of screens. What they do offensively is the same a lot of times, but there's such a mental block about some of that stuff. And your point, Mike, is well taken. Kids should want to improve their games in the offseason and do different things. But, you know, at the University of Chicago, you know, those 6'4" perimeter guys that I get, a lot of times they are centers in high school and power forward. And, you know, I'll talk to them. You'll talk to these people and the parent, well, my son's playing out of position. You know, no, he's not. Is he the best 4 on his high school team? Yeah. Then he's not out of position. Is that the best place for his high school team to win games? Yes. Well, then he's not playing out of position. And they don't give us enough credit to recognize I can watch a guy playing the 5 or playing the 4, and I can tell if they have perimeter skills. I can tell if they have the ability to move out there. How the position they play doesn't impact how we evaluate that. We're capable of figuring that out, and we'll work hard to figure that out.
That's a snippet I'm going to take, Coach. That's one that people need to hear, because we've been trying to get that across to guys, and obviously some receive it well. Some players and parents don't receive that as well, and they feel like they're going to be judged as a forward if there's 3 smaller guys out on the court with them, that they're now going to be seen as a 4 or 5. When in essence, like we say, that the professionals that are getting paid to evaluate and recruit have been doing this long enough to be able to tell whether or not a guy who happens to be guarding a big actually could play perimeter at the next level.
We're skilled at this. Like, we're experts at this. This is what we do. We can figure that stuff out. Not everybody is doing the same things. We're trying to figure out where you're going to get to, not where you are right now. And one of the things, I went to a concert here in Chicago last night with my wife, a band that I like, and they have a lyric to a song that was on a T-shirt. And the lyric, I thought I might get this from my team. The lyric said, I'm standing exactly where I'm supposed to be. And one of the things that just is, and I would say this to the parents and the kids who are watching this, there's not a bigger turnoff in the world than a kid who's more worried about where he's being recruited than how his current team is doing. If that comes through, that's a huge turnoff to us. And, you know, that's not what we're looking for. You know, so many people are, you know, I've been here for 30 years, right? You know, so many people are thinking about, what's my next step? Where am I going? What am I doing? What's after this? How am I getting there? And you got to have goals and you have to have ambitions, but man, stand exactly where you're supposed to be.
Be where you are. Yeah.
Enjoy that, thrive in that. And those people, that other stuff takes care of itself. And we want guys like that. Like, you know, you tell me, somebody starts telling me their high school coaches using them the wrong way, I get off that phone pretty quickly.
Yeah. Because I feel like it's buy-in, right? Like, I feel like it's a lack it's a lack of buy-in. And as a coach, you hear that and it's like, oh wow, he's not, that player isn't trusting in that coach. So what do I think? Well, he's not going to trust in what I think he can do over here for us, right? Or whatever the case may be. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. We appreciate that, Coach. They definitely need to hear that one.
I wanted to piggyback that a little. Since you have been coaching for such a long time, obviously the game has gone through multiple changes during that span, and I'm sure it's affected who you would recruit because the game has changed. How do you feel the game has changed most, and how it's affected your recruiting from the past till today?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because I'm evolving what we do within kind of this concept of what we want to do.
Okay.
And I have for a while, even though, so like I was raised on Bob Knight motion offense. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Bob Knight motion offense, if you ball screened, you were probably going to get shot. Like it was, the idea of having spacing was prominent.
Right. Having two guys in the offense come together was a no. Yes.
Like with the ball involved.
Yes. Right. Correct.
And like that, and obviously it's just so hard to guard, and it's so prominent, and kids know how to use screens and utilize that. I mean, we've made it a big part of our offense and figured out how to incorporate that into what we're doing. That's probably the biggest thing, is how do we incorporate, do we look for guys who know how to use ball screens and come off of them and handle it that way, versus guys who, need space to kind of do some things. That's something we've picked up on. The way the game is officiated now, it's kind of like defensive backs in the NFL. I mean, those poor guys, I mean, there's nothing harder than playing defensive back in the NFL, and then they tell you can't do anything.
There's nothing they're nothing allowed to do. They're not allowed to do anything. Yeah.
No, it's the same thing trying to guard a guy off the dribble.
Yeah.
Right. In college basketball, like if you're in perfect position and the guy rams into you, unless you fall down, they don't call a foul.
Yep. If
you're kind of a quarter of an inch out of position or you put your hands on him, the whistle blows right away. So what happens as a result of that? Offenses, I mean, coaches aren't stupid. They go to where the advantages are. We're dribbling the ball all the time.
Yeah.
And we're attacking off the dribble all the time. And the game has evolved that way. And then the other thing that you see is, back in the day, if I could find a 6'8" guy that could shoot threes, I was ecstatic. Now it's like, okay, here's a 6'8" guy. I know he can shoot a three. Can you score with him? You know what I mean?
Yes. Can he make a jump hook now? Yeah, right.
To penetrate and kick and that kind of stuff. So I don't know if it's changed what we look for in recruiting, but we've kind of evolved how we do things on our end offensively because of those.
And I like the point you brought up about kind of honing in on guys, maybe their ball screen ability, their ability to utilize the ball screen, make reads, come off it correctly. That's a skill that you would recommend high school guys key in on a little bit these days, correct?
It's everything. There's no, I wouldn't say, but yeah, there's high school players you have to figure out, you have to be well-rounded, and you have to be able to figure out everything. And it's hard. It's hard. And figuring out, a lot of times we're projecting, right? Just because a guy can do something right now, the question is, will he be able to do that against bigger, stronger, faster athletes, defenses that are a little more scouted, things like that.
Some 22-year-olds. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Some of that stuff's hard to figure out. Like, it's one thing to make reads off a ball screen. It's in certain, whether it's AAU, club basketball, summer basketball camps. I mean, you guys know how that is. You go to these camps where kids don't know each other, man. They look great coming off ball screens.
Right. There's no help defense. There's no help. Yeah, right.
No heads.
Right.
The defense is just playing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can't always find that as much as you kind of look for clues that they can put that together.
Gotcha.
In terms of, just want to hit on that a little bit more, in terms of, the type of shots you guys like to take, like you said, you guys are posting up, I feel like we're in a shooting three heavy type of style of game now. What are the type of shots that you kind of, encourage your players to take? Are you a fan of the mid range, right? Not
That's
a, you know.
that's a great question, and I'm kind of a contrarian sometimes. And we see all this analytics stuff about layups and 3-pointers and layups and 3-pointers, and then I think about how I think we're a pretty good defensive program, and I think about how we defend, and we look to take away layups and 3-pointers. So I'm like, well, shit, why don't we just become the best pull-up jump shooting team in the country? Because that's what's out there, and there's something to be said for that. We do take a lot of 3-pointers. We get skilled players, and that's something. I mean, it's part of the game, and it's good. And I've always emphasized shooting, and always will. And we'll take shots when guys are open, and emphasize that. I think if you're a really good college basketball player, or you're part of a really good college basketball team, and you have a chance to win a championship, you have to learn how to score against good defense. Okay. So we all want, spot up 3-pointers and layups. And I'm like, well, if I'm playing, I'm going to go to the Division III Final Four this weekend. I'm not going to see a lot of open 3-pointers with the feet set, and I'm not going to see a lot of layups because the defenses are going to take that away.
Yep.
So what can you do? And from that standpoint, I do think we spend a lot of time on pull-up jump shots for our perimeter guys. Can you go by somebody, draw the help, and pull up before you kick? And then in the post for us is the ability to shoot a jump hook right and left hand. You can have a guy who's 3 inches taller than you, and if you have a good hook, he still can't stop it. And we spent a lot of time on those two things. Is that what we want all the time? No, but a lot of times it's the best shot we can get. And if it's the best shot we can get, we want to be really good at it. You have to be able to score. So many players now, like even in the post, like or on the dribble, like we're trying to get to the basket clear. We're trying to get like there's nobody there. And man, that doesn't happen very often. So how do we score when there's somebody there? And that's something we spend a lot of time on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You had touched on briefly your region, and I know the Midwest, especially like Division III in the Midwest, is known as either the top or right up there. It's known as an extremely high level of Division III basketball, if not the top. How would you describe Midwest basketball? And I'd like to also ask, because you also brought up your recruitment range. How much recruiting do you do in the region? How much do you find you're able to get out of your region to find players?
We're national, and for the first time in the last couple of years, international. We've got a kid. I mean, we can call Canada international, although in some ways it's not. But we've got
technically, yeah.
We've got a kid from Canada and a kid from Turkey among the 15 guys in our team right now. There's a part of me that would love to have a roster that was predominantly kids from Illinois and or the surrounding states. And not so much because I think the basketball's better here. I think that would be kind of an arrogant thing to say. What it really is because Division III athletics in general is so strong in the Midwest. You call Johnny at Central High School, he thinks he's a scholarship player. But Johnny knows some guy who played football at another Division III, and Johnny's friend who played football was a stud. And they all thought he was like the man, and he played Division III football. So that takes away some of that kind of mystique or
stigma, whatever. Yes.
Better. The other thing is when you're regionally based, one of the advantages is I think you can get to know those kids better. So we recruit California. I'm recruiting kids out there, but how many times am I going to see that kid play in person?
Right.
How many settings am I going to see that kid play in person? Am I going to see him like we like to see kids in different settings? I like to see kids play over the summer with club or AAU or camps. I like to see kids play in a high school open gym. I like to see kids play in a high school practice. I like to see kids play in a high school game. In a perfect world, we would do all of that. Well, that's hard to do in California for us.
For sure.
The time and the energy and the resources just are limited. So but I can do that with a kid from suburban Chicago. So in some ways I would like that, but our school is just not wired that way. So we're everywhere. If you're a kid that if you can thread that needle, if you're a kid that can thrive here at the University of Chicago academically, and you're a kid that can help a team win a UA or a Division III championship, we're going to find you and we're going to recruit you. It's a lot of work, but we're going to do that.
It has to be. Even budget wise, I know that schools like you at your level, some just do keep it regionally, and some are able to, like you guys have, to go national or even international. I assume you have to just manage your budget appropriately to be able to get out, right?
Yep. Yep. You just got to figure out how to make it work. And and you got to figure out ways that don't cost money.
Mhm.
It's being on the phone. I mean, the technology has made our jobs in some ways so much more overwhelming, but yet also so much easier.
Yeah.
In the time we've been talking here, I've gotten 5 emails from kids expressing an interest in the University of Chicago. It's nonstop, right?
Awesome.
And I still try to respond to all of them, which is really exhausting sometimes, but that's what I try.
That's awesome.
And we can do things we couldn't do 20 years ago, which is nice. And it's closing that gap a little bit, I think.
What about your non-conference scheduling? Is that, do you make any decisions recruiting, as far as putting yourself in certain areas, or do you really like to stay local? I didn't really do some research and check your non-conference, but how does anything to do with it?
This year our non-conference scheduling has more to do with preparation for the NCAA tournament than recruiting.
Cool.
Are we playing the teams that are going to help us prepare for a UA championship and an NCAA tournament bid?
Cool.
And then the second side of that is, can we do some fun stuff? This year we traveled to Colorado and we played in a tournament in Vegas, and we did that for fun. So We'll do some of that. At some point, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio and Indiana and Illinois, but jumping on a bus for 5 hours in the middle of December and January around here, going to Vegas for 5 days was a lot of fun.
Sounds better, right? Sounds better. I wanted to dive in to the D3 world academically. Obviously, it's an inherently high academic setting. The majority of D3s across the country, yours in particular, is at the top, even within that realm. Like we've talked about a few times already, you need to be an incredible student just to get a sniff, just to get in the door. But then once guys are there are usually, I'm going to ask you this question too, but usually there's always a couple that seem to struggle when they get there. And my question to you is, what are the characteristics of a guy who, obviously you need to have what it takes to just get there, but then to stay successful in the classroom and on a court, whatnot, once you're there?
We're in a unique situation, Mike, in that we haven't had kids struggle.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've been here for 30 years, and we've had one kid, quote unquote, flunk out. And I could count on one hand the number of kids who's left here with under a 2.5, which I would define as struggling. And that seems shocking, right? How does that?
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah,
and it's really this, and this is where the philosophy of the University of Chicago and Division III athletics, to some degree, we fit it so well, which is, we're not going to admit somebody we don't think can thrive here academically. And the admissions office are the experts on that. I'm not.
Okay.
Now, the people working admissions, some of them been here, some of them were students here after I got here, right? I've been around a while, but their job is to know who's going to do really well here academically and who isn't. They're really good at that. And I trust them. And if they tell me, hey, we think this kid's going to struggle, or we're not sold that this kid's a good fit here, it's a done deal. We don't want that. Nobody anywhere, no basketball coach, no admissions office, no parent, no kid, no high school coach, no AU coach. Nobody wants a kid to go somewhere and struggle.
Yeah.
And for us to do that, we need to trust the experts. And we've done that over the years. And my role in the admissions office is kind of bring some people to the table who we think look good and see if they agree. And if they agree, those kids can do well here, and they usually do.
Is there any wiggle room on an academic resume for an athlete that you bring to them?
I wouldn't call it wiggle room. I would call it, we can break some ties.
Okay.
That's the way I would say it. And here's why. So
the tie goes to the hooper. Yeah, I like it.
Sometimes. So when you think about this, the admissions office decision is who can thrive here, right? Who's a kid that can thrive at the University of Chicago on our campus, socially, academically. My expertise is the basketball side, right? We get 37,000. This year will be almost 40,000 applicants, and we'll admit about 2,000 kids.
Wow.
There's a lot of those 38,000 kids that don't get admitted that could thrive here.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're picking the top 2,000 smartest kids. We can't tell that.
Right.
Putting together a class. And, there might be 2,000 kids that could fill one of those spots equally.
Mm-hmm.
And if one of them happens to be somebody that we think could really thrive here basketball-wise, sometimes that can have an influence. That's what I mean by tiebreaker. There's 2,000 kids who could do it. Now maybe we say, hey, this is a kid we really think, we know this kid would really
do it.
Sometimes that helps. Sometimes.
Awesome.
I think other places that influence is greater, and that's where you run the risk of kids struggling more.
And I would think your personal relationship, after all the time you put in there, your relationships you've built there, that you probably have a level of trust that they have in you when you come to them, as opposed to maybe a guy at a school that's been there 2 or 3 years.
I think so. I mean, I think, I think I'm not asking for favors that way usually. I'm not saying, hey, this kid, I know this kid, he's going to get it done more than these other kids that you really would rather have.
Mm.
He's in that pool. He's in that.
He'd have to fit. Yeah, he'd have to be in there initially for you to even try to go to bat for him.
They're generally pretty comfortable with the kids that we bring to the bat. Again, it's just a matter of, all right, we've only got 2,000 spots, and we have to have X number of women, and we have to have X number of men, and we have to have X number of people who want to major in these different things, and X number of people. Like, they're putting together this class, can my kid fit into that group for that, is kind of how it boils down to.
Awesome.
In terms of, especially for our players to kind of hear, are there some things that they can do on their own now, in just terms of their regimen and their schedules, that can kind of help them, if they potentially have the opportunity to come to a University of Chicago that's a high academic school, whether that's time management, whether that's asking for help or things of that nature? Are there things that they can do now to create good habits that kind of set them up to be successful when coming to a high academic Division III?
Yeah, you got to start young.
Okay.
Don't try. If you're a junior, you're not going to figure it out right now. So, and let me share this. I love working at the University of Chicago, and the former players I've had are ridiculously successful, and they're really, really talented. But there are different people, and there are different schools for different people, and we're not better than anybody else. I think of the community college in my hometown. They served a population really, really well. We serve a different kind of population really, really well. One's not better than the other. And so you have to have you have to be wired a certain way, and you have to have some natural abilities to be served by the University of Chicago and to make that a fit. And you're not going to put a round peg into a square hole, but it's just like you guys know. I mean, we can sit here and say, hey, if you want to be in the NBA, you got to do this, this, and this. And most of those kids aren't going to get there.
Yep.
But if you think that's an ambition that you have, and you think you might have the talent for it, what I always encourage kids to do is challenge themselves. When I talk about the admissions office at the University of Chicago looking at these 2,000 kids, and they think highly of a lot of them, the ones who don't make that are the ones who don't challenge themselves. You could have the greatest test score, you could be smart as a whip, but if you're not competing at the highest level you can, and depending on your school, there's different levels you can compete at. We don't compare, we don't expect the Class A basketball player in Illinois to be competing against the same people as the Class 4A players, right? Are you doing well against the people you're competing? You go into your class schedule, and you're kind of, not taking the toughest curriculum that kids at your school could. That's a bad sign for us. So challenge yourself, push yourself, try to get better. And I do think time management skills in so many ways, and there's just so many opportunities of things to do with your time now that didn't exist when I was that age. I played every day just because there was nothing else to do. I couldn't have a Zoom call with the two of you guys.
Right.
You have to figure out how to structure your day. I think that's a skill that everybody can work on. Absolutely.
I think you bringing up starting early is great, because obviously the longer you're conditioning yourself to challenge yourself, the longer you've challenged yourself, the better you will, the more comfortable you'll be in the challenging environment. So if you're a junior, senior, and you're like, oh crap, let me start challenging myself now, you're not going to be as conditioned to succeed in the challenging environment as opposed to the 8th, 9th, 10th, whatever it is, grader that has already begun challenging themselves and seeing themselves succeed through
And
those
don't
challenges.
it's never too late. Don't not do it. But if I do encourage people to start early. I mean, even if it's not going to get you to the University of Chicago or a school like this, deciding that you want to raise your game, it's never too late to do that.
Always a good thing. Yes.
I'm 52 and I'm going to raise my coaching game this summer. So,
Nice.
we all get inspired in different ways at different times, right?
Yes. Yes. Another question that I know coaches at your level get too often, or a situation, maybe not a question, but a situation. I'm gonna ask you how you handle it. You get a player, you like him, he has interests, but he tells you, coach, I want to wait to see if I get a D2, a D1. I want to wait to see if Brown or Columbia jump in. I want to wait to see if I get something at a higher level. How do you handle that situation?
Yeah. It depends on the timing of if that kid's 14, that's fine. When I was 14, I still thought I was going to Duke.
Yes, right.
So if it's January, if you're senior year in high school, you better start. If you can't figure it out by that point, we're probably time for us to move on. It's the biggest challenge. So there's two things to that. I think it's one of the biggest challenges to what I do. And the first is I want kids to have passions and dreams and goals and ambitions and strive for those and aim for those. And I'm not interested in the kid to settle. Like the last thing I want is a kid to show up at the University of Chicago and think, that's Division III, I'll be a star there. Like that's not what we're looking for, right?
Yeah.
So that's really, I want kids to be ambitious. I want them to have dreams, and I never want them to quit, right? But at the same time, you have to look at it and say, man, this landscape's telling me something. And what I really encourage kids to do in that situation is sometimes you try to figure out how desperate they are, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And, and it happens every year. You talk to a kid and he's like, well, my coach said, somebody asked about him. I said, have they called you? No. Well, they ain't recruiting you then. You know what I mean? Like, just because you hear something, my friend thinks I'm a Division II player. Like, it's like when I was in high school, man. I thought when the cute girl walked by me in the hallway and smiled, I thought she really liked me.
You were in, yeah. You thought,
yeah. So she walked right past my locker and started talking to Kevin Callahan. So, like, I didn't want to believe that I wasn't Kevin, but I wasn't. You know what I mean? And sometimes you have, and the hard part is that girl was really nice. She didn't want to say, she was just a good person.
Right.
So she didn't say, hey, Mike, by the way, I have no freaking interest in your ass. She didn't do that, right? That probably would have hurt, but it also in some ways would have helped me because I kept having hope.
Right.
And the question is like, what is that hope grounded on? Is it grounded on something substantial or is it grounded on something that you want? And here's the thing. I say all the time, Mike Krzyzewski's retiring this year. He's the greatest college basketball coach of all time. And he knows more about basketball than me in every single facet, with one exception. There's one thing I know more about basketball than Mike Krzyzewski, and that's who's a good basketball player at the University of Chicago.
Yep.
I'm an expert at that. There is nobody who knows that. Now, I make mistakes there, but I know that better than anyone. And that's true of the coach at Brown or Columbia or Yale. They know who great players there are. And if they're not telling you that, you're probably not that. You know what I mean? Now, there's stories that work out, right? If they're telling you you're a walk-on, this is an expert in his field. and he's telling you to walk on. He's inherently telling you, I don't think you're that good.
Yeah.
Now you believe in yourself. That's the quandary, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want the kid to be competitive and believe in himself and have dreams and have goals, and then you want him to take a hint.
Yes, and be realistic. Right.
Take a hint. They're not gonna tell you suck. They're not gonna do that.
Yes.
They're gonna be nice because they're nice people and they don't want to hurt your feelings. But you have to learn how to take a hint.
And I tell them too, because that coach could be the head coach. That assistant at an Ivy League could be the head coach at somewhere the next year and wants to recruit your brother. So he's not gonna tell you. Yeah, right. He's gonna keep that relationship.
And the other side of it, and that's part of it. And the other part is too. Here's what's really challenging. It's the assumption that a label defines something.
Yeah.
So, Division I, Division II, and Division III are labels. They're not definitives. So like Duke and Kentucky and UCLA, that's Division I, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all know that there's schools out there with the same label that don't have the same experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we lump them together. And this is the way I put it. And, I'm pretty candid about stuff, as you guys can tell. If Duke had called when Coach Krzyzewski decided to retire, I probably would have left the University of Chicago and taken the job.
Mm-hmm.
If they called me up and said, "Hey, Mike, we want you to replace Coach Krzyzewski," I probably would have done it.
Yep.
Because that's this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If some school called Eastern Illinois A&M Tech that was Division I called me tomorrow, I'm not going. Because my experience here, the opportunities I have here, especially for me, are better than that would be.
Even though it's technically a Division I opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, here's the other thing I think is really interesting. Obviously, Mike Krzyzewski never wanted to leave Duke. John Calipari is not leaving Kentucky.
Mm.
You can go up and down the list. Jay Wright's going to be at Villanova a long time.
Until he wants to go. Yeah, right.
Hasn't left Michigan State, right? Like Bill Self's sitting at Kansas. Like those guys are staying there, right?
Mm.
Do you know the coach at Eastern Illinois A&M Tech doesn't want to be there?
Mm. Mm.
That guy convincing you to try to go there, he doesn't really want to be there. That should tell you something about where that is in the scheme of things.
Mm.
Very, very infrequent. That guy wants to go to Duke.
Yeah.
And I've said this is better. And if you look at why it's better for me in that comparison, and those are the same things you're interested in, it might be better for you even with a different label. So
100%. No, I think that's it is. It's tough. And obviously on our end too, we deal with players and parents and trying to get them to see what the best opportunity or fit for them might be when, there's always a chunk of the population that is obsessed with the level. And like you said, the label of the level, even like you said, even if the coach there who's recruiting them deep down doesn't even want to be there by the time that kid's a senior, is hoping that he's at a different spot. So
I heard a great story the other day from a guy who played football at Notre Dame. He was an offensive lineman at Notre Dame. He was a lineman for the Bears. He does the Bears radio now. And he was telling the story about when he recruited, there was a guy named Earl Bruce, who was the head coach at Iowa State. And he said, one day Earl Bruce is in my living room telling me that Iowa State is the perfect place. There's nowhere in the world better than Iowa State. You got to go to Iowa State. And then Woody Hayes got fired, and a week later he got the Ohio State job. And he's in his office, his living room the next week going, I was wrong. There's nothing better than Ohio State. And, what kids have to do and what parents have to do is you have to step back and say, do I believe what this guy is saying? Does he believe what he's saying? Is he all in with this? Or is this just what his job? Because you don't get those jobs if you're not good at it. Mm-hmm. I could sell the University of Chicago and I could sell Elgin Community College. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can do that.
Yep.
But do I really believe in what I'm selling? That's where you got to kind of look and be a discerning listener and try to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, Coach. That's awesome. I want to dive into one last topic. We so much appreciate your time. Really, I appreciate you taking the time to let all the listeners know just some behind the scenes stuff that, you know, that maybe they're not aware of, stuff that going through someone like your head when you're evaluating, when you're making decisions that's affecting so many people's lives. The last topic I want to jump into is parents, because obviously there's many different types as far as how they go about trying to help their kid in the recruiting process. I'd like to ask you, what are some of the red flags that your antenna picks up right away about a parent's behavior that might make you hesitant or worry or say, ooh, that parent might end up doing some damage to the kid's recruitment as opposed to helping?
Yeah, I don't know if we're pretty lucky here. Let me start this off. I had a parent one time. I don't remember if I recruited the kid. He was on my team. I just remember this story. I don't remember how it all played out. But this parent was like, I played college basketball and I look at my son objectively as a basketball player. And I stopped him and I said, to be honest with you, if that's the case, we're not interested in recruiting your son. Because if you don't look at your son differently than anybody else in the world, then your family's got problems.
It's impossible, probably. Right?
And that's not even impossible. I don't want you to.
Yeah, right.
You can't, you shouldn't do that. And so don't tell me that you can, because it's okay. And I don't expect you to. Parents should absolutely love their kid more. And they should absolutely think more highly of their kid than anybody else in the world. And they think their kid is better than any. My grandmother, my parents thought I was pretty darn special, and I was blessed that they did. You know what I mean? Like
they thought you were going to Duke too. They thought you all thought you were going to Duke.
Hey, that's fine. And I had my family supported me, and I'm lucky to have had that. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. What I think that people do a disservice is when they try to kind of determine an agenda and make it happen. And I think that's true of parents. I think that can be true of high school coaches. I think that can be true of club coaches. I think that can be true of kids. I think that can be true of a lot of different people. There's an organic process to this. There's a way that this happens naturally. And the reality is most people end up where they should end up. Most people end up where they should end up.
Yeah.
And if you the reality is, if you don't end up where you should end up, you're probably not going to be happy.
Yep.
And there's some trust that you have to give to that. And when you're trying to circumvent that natural process, then bad fits happen. And in the end, nobody's happy when that happens. Let it play. Let it flow. Ask questions, be engaged. There's nothing wrong with any of that, but just let it flow a little naturally. Don't try it. And agenda might be the wrong word, but just whatever it is you think would be right for your son or daughter, let it play out that way rather than try to kind of push it into a direction. That's the advice I would give most people. And that's hard. That's hard.
And as a final thought on that, you as if you're a parent, and it's your kid going through it, what does that exactly look like as a parent, as far as just kind of letting it play out? There's obviously levels of support that they can provide. There's absent parents that, that are maybe hurting the kid a little bit because he doesn't have that extra support. So what is the perfect level of support coming from a parent?
Yeah, I don't know that's a really good question. And it's a really hard one to answer because I don't know that anything's perfect.
Probably, right.
And it's hard to do that. What I would say is this is different for me at the University of Chicago than might be for some schools at other coaches or different families, but empower your son. And if there's fathers and mothers of daughters listening to this, empower your daughter. Teach them how to be engaged in this process. Teach them how to manage it. Teach them how to kind of ask questions and learn and analyze things for themselves. Teach them how to communicate appropriately. Help them learn the stuff that we all. I mean, I'm 52 years old, right? I look back on when I was 18. I was like, man, I wish I knew some of the stuff I knew now, right? We all do. Maybe that girl wouldn't walk by me and talk to Kevin. But the thing about it is you can impart some of that wisdom. You can't kind of shove it. You can't do it for them. So try to empower them to figure out how to ask questions and go through the process. And then what you want to do as a parent, this is the most, coming back to it, it goes back to I'm standing exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Mm.
As a parent, the most important thing in the world, let's imagine we're talking about a senior in high school. The most important thing in the world is that person have an amazing senior year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are you doing right now? As I said a couple minutes, I'm 52 years old, and 10 of my best friends in the world are buddies of mine from my senior year in high school. Little St. Edward's Catholic School in Elgin, Illinois. And I would take a bullet for these guys. They've been friends of mine for 40 years, and they would for me, although they all denied if they were listening to this. And sometimes, you look around and you look at some of your friends and you're like, why am I friends with that guy? Mm-hmm. And for me, it's really easy to understand. It all goes back to my senior year in high school. We had a blast. We played ball. We had fun. We studied. We just did what we did. And it was such a great experience. And I have relationships now in my life that make my life better because we were all where we were supposed to be at that time. We enjoyed that moment rather than worrying about what was coming next. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, that's a pretty successful group of people. It's not like they've ignored their futures. They're doing awfully well. But we enjoyed where we were at that time. And I think sometimes as parents, we get so caught up into what's next. And sometimes as parents, we get our kids so caught up into what's next that they don't enjoy where they're at right now. And man, that could be a huge loss. Mm-hmm. And I guess in the end, I would encourage parents to really try to help their kids do that and let the other stuff come together.
Thanks so much, Coach. That is awesome. And hearing it from you, from someone with your experience and in your position, that I think those words go a really long way. We're so appreciative that you took the time to jump on here with us and answer our questions and give our listeners some real insight on how to help them in this journey. Because as you know, every player is obsessed with this. And so to feel like they're being directed correctly on the right path, as opposed to feeling like they're just wandering out in the field, not knowing if they're doing things correctly, is everything. Yeah. So it's
and that's the thing I would end with is it's not easy. It's so hard. It's so hard and it's so confusing and so challenging that you just got to keep muddling through it and trying to figure it out and have your heart in the right place.
Absolutely. We appreciate you, Coach. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thanks so much. We'll be in touch. You'll be hearing from us. We'll be keeping our eyes open for some University of Chicago future players, and you'll be getting some text messages from us saying, letting you know who to look out for.
I appreciate it, guys.
All right, Coach. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right.